typically when it comes to the State of Play or the Xbox Showcase or whatever, I usually now wait an hour or two before I record. That allows the fan level hypes to drop a little bit. I don't come off as fanboyish. It's the greatest thing ever. It's changing my life. I let it digest for a little while. That typically means lower than normal views for me, which is pretty low to begin with, but that's okay. Because at least I want to be true to myself and to this channel. So when I say I've reflected on the fact that State of Play came out and I watched it and it sucked, I mean it. Wasn't that great? Now, that's not to say there weren't a couple cool things that came out of it, but I think the consensus, at least in our household, talking with my wife, who was sitting next to me on the couch watching it, we kept waiting for that big wow moment. And more than anything, the way that it ended was so anticlimactic, with such little fanfare. You didn't get that hype of just one more thing, which has kind of become a staple in the industry. You didn't get any of that. It just cut to some woman saying, hey, that's everything we saw. Hope you like the blog and bye. And I mean, within half a second, the stream had ended and YouTube was already auto-directing me to the next video. That's how fast it happened. It was like, wow, I didn't really feel that sense of awe and mystique. And while the Astro finale was great, boy, oh boy, that could have been its own direct, I think, because it didn't belong with what we saw. So the first 10 to 15 minutes was spent talking about a new game studio coming out. This new game they have called Concord. And Concord is basically Overwatch in space. What they're trying a little bit different, the thing I caught on to there was that they're going to do weekly installments of character backstory. You didn't really get that in Overwatch, and it was clear to many of us that Overwatch, when it came out, was really just a hero shooter, and people injected their own personality into the various characters, but that the characters sometimes weren't exactly who you thought they were. Not saying they were bad, but the backstory on some of them wasn't as grandiose or exciting as we had made them out to be, or in some cases, even better. So when you're presenting somebody with the hero shooter and you're trying to get them to identify with a particular character, well, you need to make sure that character has a personality that just oozes off the screen. And I think that's where Overwatch didn't always get it right. I think Concord is trying to fix that story element. Now, will they nail the gameplay element of it? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But that's how they started off the show. 15 minutes worth of this really long cinematic introducing you to just a handful of the characters that were available for playing in the game. And it just kind of like, I remember turning to my wife and I was like, what is this game? And even after the end, we still didn't know. After the trailer ended, after the ship flies out into outer space, they get the treasure. What are we doing here? And that's when we actually found out they're like, oh, it's a 5v5 hero shooter. It's like, okay, cool. Did not get that from the trailer at all. Sony has continued to kind of double down on the PlayStation stuff. You probably saw this now infamous clip of Herman Hulst the other day presenting a keynote talking about trying to get single-player PlayStation games exclusive to the console for a limited time and then transitioning over to PC. God of War Ragnarok is one of the best games I have ever played. I platinumed it. I loved it. I played the DLC. I platinumed it. I loved it. It was a very emotional, beautiful story, especially if you played the first one. It continues some of the great themes and storytelling and really doubles down on some phenomenal gameplay elements that the first one had. I'm so happy that my friends, and I am a PC master racer myself, but I'm so happy my friends at PC are going to be able to finally experience that. It was a quick little burst of announcement. We didn't see much in terms of the specs required or gameplay footage, if it's ultra wide, what kind of royal treatment will that game get? We did not get to see any of that. I'm sure they'll talk about it at a later date, but some of the previous PlayStation PC ports were definitely not as well received as they could have been. There were some issues with them. I'm hoping they get this one right so people can focus on the beauty of that game and not all the technical nonsense, which may or may not arise as you port it over to PC. Until Dawn is coming back again. I feel like this is the 4th or 5th time we've seen this game remade or remastered in some approach. I instantly recognize the characters and the setting. It looks gorgeous. I don't know who's going to buy it. I feel like this game came out on PlayStation Plus already. I don't think anybody who has a PlayStation 5 at this point hasn't had a chance to check it out. I feel like it's kind of run its course. I don't know. Behemoth is probably the closest thing I have seen yet, which is wanting me to get into PlayStation VR 2. It looked incredible as a kind of Skyrim-esque combat clone with a grappling hook where you pull it in, you can hit people with swords. It looked a lot of fun. It looked great. I think if anybody can pull it off, it's these guys. I know that the jury was out on Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. I happen to enjoy it. I thought it was fun. I'm excited for this game, and I hope that it kind of ushers in a new era of potential VR hits because, let's face it, PlayStation VR has been incredibly boring lately. We have not seen a lot of excitement there or news there at all. So I'm excited that that is kind of making its triumphant return. And I just noticed now, I had this loading. Look at this on my screen. I just toggled it on and off. What is that? Interesting. Thanks, OBS. I'm not redoing this video, by the way. So if you're watching it, waiting for something to load, well, here we are. 6 minutes in, nothing loaded. Path of Exile 2 is making its way over to the console. I'm excited for that. The first Path of Exile started off a little rough, but it did ultimately get a lot better as time went on. I'm excited that they found a way to continue making that game better and better because honestly, when it first came out, it wasn't that great. It's very much a Diablo clone. And now that Diablo has come out with the Season of Loot, it makes me wonder what the Path of Exile community is kind of looking for. Because I feel like a lot of people's prayers were answered with Diablo 4. I could be wrong. Interesting. We'll see how that pans out. Monster Hunter Wilds, day one purchase for me. Absolute day one purchase. I cannot wait for this game. If you can give me a 60 frame per second mode on console, I will buy it for PlayStation 5. If not, I'll buy it for PC like I did last time and enjoy the hell out of it. I love everything Monster Hunter. I cannot wait till we get more information on that. Silent Hill 2 had a snippet of gameplay footage here, but a lot more on the Silent Hill 2 Direct, which came on after this. I have never played a Silent Hill game. This will be my first. I am very excited for this game. It looks great. Did it run at 30 frames per second? That's the only thing I'm worried about. Alien Rogue Incursion. This was a throwaway PSVR game to me. Did not look interesting at all. Was not fun. Did not look exciting. Marvel Rivals, I think, is the best kept secret on the internet right now. A hero third-person combat game. We saw some really cool stuff in there. I don't recognize half of the characters that were in here. I did, of course, recognize Spider-Man and Venom, which is cool. I'm excited for this. I don't know what kind of traction it will gain. It is a very congested, competitive shooter space. I mean, the beginning of this PlayStation Direct or Showcase, whatever, was a competitive shooter. How many more of these do we need? There's so many. The market is so saturated now. You're getting multiples of them in the same showcase. That worries me. Dynasty Warriors. I haven't played a Dynasty Warriors game in a while. Could be fun. Could be fun. Ballad of Antara and Infinity Nikki. Definitely not games for me. Ballad of Antara is going to be a free-to-play fantasy RPG. And Infinity Nikki looks like some kind of game where you dress a little Japanese girl up and go on adventures. Not the target audience for me. Wasn't interested in it. Didn't really get much of any news on Where Winds Meet other than I thought at first maybe we were going to go down the road of a little bit of Jin Sakai, but we did not get any Jin Sakai. Where is he? He is nowhere to be found in this game. The ghost remains hidden. It says it's an open world action-adventure RPG. Incredibly vague. Didn't really stand out to me. And that's it. And then Astrobot, which I already talked about, which I think was phenomenal and closed out the show. And I can't wait to get that game. And that's a day one purchase for me as well. But when you look at the whole of everything, there wasn't anything that really stood out outside of Astrobot. I didn't see anything that made me just my jaw hit the floor and say, oh my gosh. I feel like the fact that they had such a deep dive on one game for so long kind of hurt the pacing of this. And for that reason, the pacing partially, but just the lack of any like, oh my gosh, exciting announcements. Nothing that was like, and it's available right now, or here's a really cool collector edition, or go in the store right now and pre-order and get some cool thing, or there's a demo going on. There was nothing that encouraged me to like bust out of the theater and run home and fire up my PlayStation 5. That's why to me this was a fail. It was an unforced fail. I don't think Sony owed us anything. I know we're in the summer fest and the summer game fest, and you know, we're in that time of the year where like E3 should have been going on, but industry's a bunch of dicks and ruined it. But you know, did they have to do this right now? I don't know. I feel like it's a momentum herder for them. What do you guys think? Sound off in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on all things State of Play. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.